Hello, friends. Welcome to another What I Watched video. If you're coming back after my January What I Watched video, thank you. I know that one was really long, so I appreciate you coming back for a second one, and I'm gonna try and make it shorter. February is a shorter month, and I watched fewer movies, so hopefully this one will go a little bit quicker than the other one. I won't ramble too much at the beginning, but let's just jump right into it. So, the first movie that I watched in February was Lars and the Real Girl, which is a 2007 movie directed by Craig Gillespie, and I gave it 2 stars. So, not starting the month off on the best foot, I guess. This movie stars Ryan Gosling as Lars, who is a very socially awkward man. And to cope with his social awkwardness, he buys a life-size sex doll that he introduces to everyone as his girlfriend. And the movie is about his relationship with this sex doll and the relationship that those around Lars eventually start to form with the sex doll as well. Yeah, that is the premise of the movie, so I knew that when I clicked on it, so I don't really know what I expected, but it's the kind of movie where you're obviously going to have to deal with some weirdness, suspend your disbelief for at least part of it. And I like weird movies. I was ready to do that. And for probably like the first half, I was fine with it. I was like, yeah, this is very quirky and eccentric, but it's funny in the way that it's eccentric. It's amusing at least. So I was on board, but then the movie takes itself really seriously, and I was just not willing to go there with it, I guess. I felt very emotionally manipulated by this movie. Like, it felt as though the movie really wanted, by the end of it, for me to be asking, oh my god, like, why am I crying over this sex doll? And instead I was kind of like, why are all of these characters crying over a sex doll? It just didn't really connect for me. I didn't really understand the character of Lars that well. I did like Ryan Gosling doing something really different for him to be this socially awkward man, but I didn't understand why the people around Lars liked him so much and were willing to like bend over backwards to do things for him. So the whole emotional core kind of fell flat for me. So eccentricity can only carry a movie so far, and I didn't really like it overall. Luckily, the next movie I watched was a little bit better. It was Safety Not Guaranteed, which came out in 2012 and was directed by Colin Trevorrow. I gave this one 4 stars. It stars Aubrey Plaza as an intern for a local paper, and she goes with her boss, who's played by Jake Johnson, to respond to a newspaper ad that was placed by an eccentric man, played by Mark Duplass. He is looking for a partner to travel back in time with him. It's kind of a simple premise and obviously like a pretty silly one, this crazy guy trying to do time travel, but everyone in the movie really commits to the premise, and the movie itself commits to the premise, so you're kind of just willing to go along with it. And I think the 3 main actors, Aubrey Plaza, Jake Johnson, and Mark Duplass, are a huge reason why this one works. Like, they're all very good at delivering dialogue in a very natural way. So even though you're like, this is really silly, you believe them, and so you get invested in the characters. It's not a perfect movie. I think thematically it gets a little bit muddled. It's not amazing storytelling, and I really didn't like a lot of the cinematography, but overall I had a really fun time with it. I love these actors in anything, and like I said, they're really great here, and I was just really smiling through a lot of it. And by the end, I was surprised how it ended, but I really liked it. I thought it was a good payoff, and it just made me happy, which always happy when a movie does that. The third movie, which was my Before I Was Born movie for the month of February, it was When Harry Met Sally, which came out in 1989 and was directed by Rob Reiner, and I gave it 5 stars. It was probably my favorite movie that I watched in February. I love a good rom-com, and this is obviously one of like the peak rom-coms, so kind of shocking that I hadn't seen it before, to be honest, but again, giving a plot synopsis for something like this feels a little silly. It is a very classic boy meets girl story. Sally is played by Meg Ryan. She drives Harry, played by Billy Crystal, to New York City, and they dislike each other right away. But then throughout the years, their paths cross many more times, and they slowly become friends, and then something more. Like I said, very quintessential boy meets girl story, but it hits the beats really well. Like, they don't like each other at first, and by the end of the movie they're supposed to fall in love. And I think a lot of the time when movies do that, they draw out the animosity between the two main characters for too long, so that by the time they fall in love, you're kind of like, do I even want them to get together? Like, this seems kind of toxic, they don't like each other. But I thought this one timed things out really well. Like, the hatred didn't go on for too long, and then it evolved into friendship and then romance. It was a really believable progression in their relationship, which I liked, and it's just really well written. I think it was nominated for an Oscar for the screenplay. Like, it's genuinely super funny. I'd obviously seen the I'll have what she's having scene before, but it still made me laugh out loud, as a lot of the scenes in this movie did. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. Billy Crystal would not be like my first choice for a male romantic lead, but I liked him enough, and I loved Meg Ryan. I loved every blazer that she wore in this movie. She looked phenomenal, and the two of them did have really good chemistry. Like I said, great rom-com. I love rom-coms. I'm sold. Let's move on. Another rom-com is next, and it is the first of, actually, I think 3 movies that I watched that came out this month, so go me. This one was To All the Boys, Always and Forever. It was directed by Michael Fimignari. Again, I learned my lesson from the first video and definitely looked up how to pronounce names. And yeah, like I said, this movie came out in February, and I gave it 2 stars. So this was the conclusion of Netflix's To All the Boys I've Loved Before trilogy, which is adapted from a book trilogy. This final installment finds Lana Condor as Laura Jean and Noah Centineo as Peter, navigating their relationship as they prepare for the next step in their lives, which is college. So I love the first movie in this series, and I think it's way better than it has any right to be as like a high school rom-com that's pretty cliche. But I think because the first movie was so good, it made the sequels like even bigger disappointments, because I think both of the sequels are like fine high school rom-coms, but coming off of the first one, they seem worse. I don't know. So yeah, this one was just kind of frustrating to me. I'm thinking maybe I'm too old to be watching high school based rom-coms at this point, because the decisions that these 17-year-olds are making based on a relationship that formed when they were 16 are like infuriating as they're trying to decide whether they should go to college together or not. It's like, oh my God, like, you were 16 when you met, just go to college where you want to go to college. That's going to be a way more important choice in your life. So setting that aside, even so, like, even if I'm on board with the plot, I thought the movie was just kind of a little bit messy. Like, I didn't have a good sense of the timeline of the things that were happening. I felt like a lot of the plot points were either unresolved or unnecessary. Like, there's a whole plot line with Peter and his dad that I just found it hard to get invested in, and it didn't feel like it paid off that well at the end, so I didn't really get the point. I like Lana Condor as Laura Jean. She's been the high point of this whole series, but like I said, the character is just making some annoying and dumb decisions, so it was just kind of hard to get on board for. A pretty standard Netflix rom-com, if we're being honest. I'm just going to chalk it up to my theory that rom-coms should not have sequels and move on. Maybe rewatch the first one and keep enjoying that. The next movie that I watched, I don't know if it technically counts as a movie, but Letterboxd let me log it as one. So if that's the criteria, then we're going to include it. It was a documentary called Framing Britney Spears. Obviously, I don't know that was such a weird way to say that. Like, I'm sure a lot of people have heard of this documentary. It's getting a lot of attention. It came out in February. It was directed by Samantha Stark, and I gave it 4 stars. It's about Britney Spears and her rise to fame, her tumultuous relationship with the paparazzi, and how she ended up in a conservatorship that she now cannot really get out of. I don't really know how to review this movie from like a critical perspective, I guess. I mean, it's a documentary, not really a movie. I don't know. Are they the same? Anyway, I don't watch a lot of documentaries, so from that kind of perspective, I don't really know. If you have documentary recommendations, let me know. Maybe I'll try and watch more of those this year. But I will say, I wish it was longer than 75 minutes. It kind of felt like we were jumping from one point to the other. Also, this isn't really the fault of the people making it, but they couldn't get interviews with like Britney or a lot of people who are really close to her. They did get interviews with one woman who is a friend / former employee of Britney, so she had, I think, the most intimate perspective of things, but a lot of it was very like outside perspective, which is kind of frustrating, just like not knowing what's really going on the inside, but I guess that's kind of the nature of the topic that's being covered. That being said, I think it's fully worth a watch. It's really sad, obviously, but also very interesting to kind of reflect on how celebrities were treated during that time by the paparazzi, and how mental health was not really at the forefront of the conversation, and to kind of think about celebrity culture now, where everything's kind of on social media and the paparazzi aren't quite as big of an influence anymore, and a lot of celebrities are talking about mental health and things like that. It was just really interesting to see that dichotomy and to just kind of reflect on the way that Britney Spears was treated by the media and by those around her. And yeah, free Britney. Like, hopefully things are better for her and she's able to get out of this conservatorship, or at least have her dad not be the conservator if that's what she wants. So like I said, definitely worth a watch, and interesting thing to learn more about, I'd say. Moving right along, the next movie I watched was Midsommar, not really sure how you're supposed to pronounce that. This was my horror movie for the month of February. It came out in 2019 and was directed by Ari Aster, and I gave it 4 stars. So let me give a synopsis first. This movie follows Danny, who is played by Florence Pugh. She is reeling from the death of her whole family, and she joins her boyfriend and his friends on a trip to Sweden for a summer festival in a small community where things quickly turn deadly. Ooh, what a titillating synopsis I wrote there. So last month, when I was talking about how I started watching horror movies in 2020, actually the reason I guess that I kind of started doing that was because I really wanted to watch Hereditary, which was also directed by Ari Aster. So this was his follow-up to Hereditary. I liked Hereditary more. I did give this one 4 stars, though. I did enjoy it. I didn't think it was scary at all. I'm still counting it as my horror movie because it's technically in that genre, but I was not at all scared. I was grossed out, and like there's creepy stuff going on, but I wouldn't call it like straight horror. Any horror that you're feeling is definitely more psychological, or like I am horrified by the amount of blood that is in my face right now. That being said, I think Florence Pugh's performance in this is phenomenal. She is excellent. Love watching her. Her character's going through so much grief, and she plays the stages of that grief really, really well. I really liked the performance of all the boys who she was with as well. I thought they had like a good amount of animosity versus humor. I found this movie almost funny. I like at times definitely funny, which I don't know that that's the tone that it was aiming for. So I have mixed feelings about it because I did enjoy it in that sense, but I'm not sure that I was meant to. You know what I mean? Maybe you don't, if you haven't seen this movie especially. But yeah, I thought a lot of the symbolism was really good, and the end really brings all the themes together in a very satisfying payoff. So I liked that, but it is long, and I think there's like a lot of symbolism buried in it, and like I said, there are some really horrific, gross images in this, but they're really spread out. So parts of it can kind of drag, and then at the end, it kind of all comes to a roaring climax. So I thought the pacing left a little bit to be desired, as well as the clarity of the tone, I would say. But I enjoyed watching it. I enjoyed the performances a lot, so I still gave it 4 stars. Maybe next month I will watch something actually scary. Ooh, maybe not. I don't know. So far I've watched Scream and this, and neither have been particularly scary, so I think I'm doing pretty well for myself. But we'll see. Maybe eventually I will get to something that's true horror. Okay, the next movie I watched was Judas and the Black Messiah, which also came out in February. It was directed by Shaka King, and I gave it 4 stars. So this is one of the movies I called out at the end of my January video, saying that I was looking forward to it. It is the story of Bill O'Neill, played by Lakeith Stanfield, who infiltrated the Black Panthers to pass information to the FBI, and that information led to the killing of Fred Hampton, who is played by Daniel Kaluuya. Kaluuya? Ooh, I really should have looked that one up because I like him a lot. Anyway, like I said, I was really looking forward to this one, and I did like it a lot. I think this is maybe a weird thing to say. I like the title of this movie a lot. Like, Judas and the Black Messiah is such a provocative title, and I feel like it was really at the forefront of my mind the entire time I was watching it, and it made the story even richer. So, like, props to this movie, because that's rarely ever been the case with the title of a movie that I've watched, I feel like. So love that. I loved Daniel Kaluuya in this movie. I like him in everything I've ever seen him in, but this performance was really transformative for him, I thought, in a way that I hadn't seen from him before. He just won the Golden Globe for it, which I think is super well deserved. I have grand aspirations of an entire video about awards season, so I won't get into that too much. I'm waiting until the Oscar nominations come out for that one. I also really love Lakeith Stanfield in everything I've seen him in up till this point, but this was not my favorite performance from him as Bill O'Neill. I thought he wore his emotions very much on his sleeve in this movie, and sometimes it was a little bit much for me. Like, he was playing a spy, and his emotions being so on his sleeve, it was kind of hard to believe that he was passing well in the Black Panthers for a lot of the movie. So that was a little bit disappointing for me, since I do really, really like him as an actor. But overall, I mean, this is a super interesting story, and I thought the movie told it in a really engaging way. I liked the different perspectives we got with the different characters. Like, a lot of it is from Bill's perspective and the conflict that he's feeling over which side he's on, but you also get a good amount of Fred Hampton's perspective. His girlfriend is pregnant, and this contradiction he feels between where his loyalty lies. Like, he's willing to give up his life for the Black Panthers, but now he has a son on the way, so I liked that dramatic aspect. There's also a really great scene with the FBI agent who is kind of forcing Bill O'Neill into this undercover role, when this white FBI agent, played by Jesse Plemons, he realizes that even he doesn't have all the information, and he's being manipulated to take in a certain narrative about the Black Panthers and their use of violence. So I really liked that aspect, that, like, we were shown these different perspectives and kind of shown the way that we're not really getting every side of the story when we think about the violence that's associated with these revolutionary movements. I thought that was really thought-provoking. But yeah, not a perfect movie. Again, like I said, I thought a little bit of it came on too strong almost. I could have used a little bit more subtlety in the performances and in the storytelling, but very, very engaging throughout. I would definitely recommend checking it out. Last movie I watched was The Trip, which is a 2010 movie directed by Michael Winterbottom, and I gave it 3 stars. So this is a largely improvised movie. It follows British actors and comedians. I think they're both. It follows Steve Coogan and Rob Brydon playing slightly fictionalized versions of themselves as they go on a food tour of Northern England, basically. Yeah, I don't know that I really like understood the style of this movie. So there is a plot. Steve Coogan was supposed to go on this food tour with his girlfriend, but then she left to go back to America. It's not really, I think they're on a break, they say. They're not like officially broken up, but he's definitely seeing other people at this point. So there is that storyline kind of going throughout, and also Steve has a lot of calls with his agents throughout the movie as he's trying to book these different jobs and kind of make it in the movie industry. And then Rob is kind of the fill-in for his girlfriend on this trip, and he's definitely more just like along for the ride than having a true piece of the story. So this movie doesn't have a credited writer, so it seems like a lot of it was improvised, but obviously there were these plot points built in, and I didn't think the plot meshed super well with like the more purely improvised scenes between Steve and Rob. Like when Steve and Rob are in the car on their way to the next location or at a restaurant, like over the food, it's clearly improvised. It's just these two men having fun, and it can drag on a little bit, but the overall it's like enjoyable to watch. They're funny, they have good rapport, so that was enjoyable. But whenever it was kind of Steve by himself having one of these plot-centric moments, I felt like it kind of dragged to a halt, and just didn't have the same tone as these more improvised rapport scenes. So I didn't love the two of them together, or like the two styles put together, I guess. I know this was originally filmed as a TV series and then cut into a movie, and I think I might have enjoyed it more as the TV series, just because, like I said, sometimes it would kind of drag on, and I feel like breaking it up would maybe work a little bit better. I know that there are also like 3, maybe 4 sequels to this movie where they go on food tours of different places, so I am kind of curious whether those sequels lean into the plot or kind of lean more into the just improvise these two friends having a trip. I am curious. I don't know that I will watch them. I might watch the one that takes place in Greece just so I can be really annoying and be like, when I studied abroad in Greece, the food that I ate was very similar, which I'm sure everybody wants to see. So stay tuned. Maybe I'll come back to this one. But yeah, I gave it 3 stars. It was kind of right down the middle for me in terms of enjoyment and not loving it. I do watch a lot of British game shows, not to brag, but so I knew Rob Brydon from some of those, and I wasn't that familiar with Steve Coogan, but they do have good chemistry, like I said, and I like their humor. It's very like dry and almost repetitive, but I found it charming. So like I said, liked them in it, didn't love the more plotty aspects, but an interesting concept, and I'm glad I checked it out. It was something pretty different for me. So that brings us to the end of the list of things I watched in February. I said in the January video that I was going to watch Nomadland, and I did not, so we're gonna push that one back to March. I don't have other grand plans for what I'm gonna watch in March as of now. I've gotten a lot of recommendations based on my first video, so thank you to everyone who sent me those. I will definitely be checking some of them out either this month or further down the road, so please keep sending them my way if you think of things that I maybe would like. Yeah, I'm trying to keep it short and sweet, so I'm gonna wrap it up there. Thank you so much for watching. Feel free to like and subscribe. I guess that's the thing you're supposed to say at the end of these videos. Hopefully, I don't know when this will get uploaded, but I'll have some more like video essay style videos coming for you soon as well. So it won't just all be me rambling like this. It will be scripted and concise. It'll still be long. I'm rambling. So we're gonna end it here. Thanks for watching. Bye.